Hello everybody, this is Hammer Striker here. In the world of concealed carry, the compact size is still a very popular category. I've got the old standby Glock 19, this is a Gen 5, and I've got a newer contender, the Springfield Echelon, this is the 4.0C. Please don't forget to check out our website. Go to our affiliates page. You'll find discount codes for things like Mantis Axe and Core belts. Link to that cool little bore light that we use for lighting up the barrels. Use those links. It will often save you money, never will cost you any additional money, and helps the channel. And please consider supporting the channel on Player, formerly Utreon, where we can do some types of videos that are no longer allowed on YouTube. The Echelon is a newer line to Springfield, and this is the latest in the line, at least as of the making of this video. Springfield does have a habit of coming out with a line and then really expanding it. So I don't expect there to just be a few of these, but possibly if you're watching this video months or years after we release it, there's going to be a lot of variation. But right now there's the full-size Echelon, there's the 4.0C that you see here, and there's a 4.5C. The 4.0 is roughly equivalent to the size of a Glock 19. And of course, I have a Glock 19. Now, Glock has a tendency to do less innovation and less extension of their line. They kind of make a gun and then they do what they're going to do and it sells, and then they make another generation and tweak a few things and it sits there and it sells. Glock doesn't expand their line as much as Springfield does. This particular one is not optics ready, but there is an optics ready version of the Glock 19 Gen 5 available. Glock calls their optics ready MOS, and it comes with all the plates that you would need to mount various optics. This one is quite obviously optics ready, all the Echelon series is, and it's a direct mount system, so you don't have to worry about plates. Just there's pins you set up to do the various things. Way more convenient, way more advanced than the plate system. This, I think, is going to kind of almost set the tone for the industry. That's kind of where things should go. The Echelon has 3-slot Picatinny rail. The Glock has a single slot. The number of slots is kind of less important these days than it used to be because all of the manufacturers have adopted to the Glock single slot setup. And since a Picatinny rail is a Picatinny rail, if it works on the Glock single slot, it'll work on any number of slots. But it is nice to have a few extra slots if you want to reposition in something a little more precisely. It has front serrations. They're really nice, deep front serrations, and they've got a shelf, so this kind of narrows down to a shelf. So it's almost impossible to not be able to cycle this. These serrations work really well. They're easy to get a hold of. They don't bite into your hand. The rear serrations are equally good with that same, kind of narrowing down into a shelf or a wing to get a hold of it. Really easy to cycle. The Glock does have front serrations in all the modern Gen 5s. This was a very early Gen 5, but subsequent to this, they've started putting front serrations in all of them. But they're identical to the rear serrations, so there would just be a copy of this up at the front. And they're fairly easy to use, but they're nowhere near as nice as the ones on the Echelon. The rear ones are easy to get a hold of. There is no shelf or lip. So kind of what I'm seeing is the Echelon includes a lot of modern features, a lot of evolution, and the Glock's not quite keeping up. Now, I still carry Glocks. I still like Glocks. I think they're very reliable. But the Springfields have also proven to be quite reliable. The sights on the Glock are U-dot, standard Glock sights. It's kind of a square U. I know some people don't like these sights. I like them. I can shoot them well. I find them easy to pick up and acquire and easy to work with. So I do like the Glock sights. If you have an optic ready version of it, which again, this one's not, but they are available, then you can put an optic on if you don't like the sights. But it's also easy to change the Glock sights. The Springfield sights are a U-dot, where the U is actually a U. The front is a tritium sight with a ring around it, so it's real easy to see during the day, and also it glows at night. And of course I've got an optic on it. And one thing about this, if you have a lower profile optic with this direct mount system where you don't have the thickness of a plate, for those that like to be able to co-witness, see the sights through the optic, you can do it. So that's one of the advantages to that kind of a setup. Ergonomics, they do have replaceable back straps on the Echelon. The Glock does as well. The frame acts as one back strap, and then you have two that you can add to it to make it thicker. The Gen 5s also have a kind of a beaver tail extension back strap. They all come with it. The Springfield, you replace the back strap, this comes off, and interestingly enough, the back strap itself is the tool to remove the back strap. It's got a pin that sticks up. So when you put the back strap on, the pin goes up to center and locate it, but that pin is also a punch that you would use to release the back strap and change it. So that's kind of convenient. The tool, if you got the back strap that you're wanting to put on, you've got the tool to put the back strap on. It does have texturing on the front of the trigger guard and underneath the trigger guard. And it's got locator pads all over the place for however you want to set your fingers on it. It is ambidextrous slide stop slide release and ambidextrous mag release. The Glock has an ambi slide stop slide release. The magazine catches reversible, but it's not ambi from the get-go. And both of these, the slide stop slide release on the other side does actually work. I've had some guns where it's a thin piece of metal connecting this one and it doesn't work well. Both of these, it does work well. So you've kind of got all of those features that people are looking for these days. From a capacity standpoint, the Glock base capacity is 15, and it's got these plastic wrap magazines that are characteristic of Glock, and it sits kind of flush. And of course, like all Glocks, it will take magazines. This is a 17-round Glock mag from a Glock 17 on up to all sorts of kinds of huge magazines, things that YouTube doesn't let us show on YouTube anymore. But there's a lot of diversity of magazines. But one thing you'll notice is when you put a larger magazine in it, you've just got a larger magazine in it. Glock doesn't offer any kind of a thing to go around the magazine or a sleeve to fill that gap, so you kind of get what you get. There are third-party sleeves out there, but nothing that Glock offers. The Echelon flush mag is 15 rounds. Fits nice and flush with a little bit of a pinky lip. Not really bad, as far as it really doesn't stick out and get in the way, but you get a full 3-finger grip just like the Glock. It kind of integrates well. But it also will take a larger mag. This is a Springfield magazine, and it has a nice well-integrated sleeve that kind of extends the grip nicely. And Springfield's done that all the way back into their XD and XDM series, where they have a nice integration with the magazine extension. And this is factory. This is right from Springfield. This isn't a third party. And it will take all of the larger mags from the larger Echelon series. Now, one thing I didn't mention yet is that the Echelon is a chassis setup. So the fire control group is inside here and is a chassis that you can remove, and that's the serialized component. So the firearm is actually that chassis that's inside here, similar to the P320 and some of the others, which means other grips can be readily available that you can put the chassis into. So it allows you to convert and move things around very easily. The Glock it's all integrated into the frame. The frame is a serialized component, so you can't just swap things around on this as easily. From a statistics or specifications point of view, let's kind of talk about the numbers, because that does matter in concealed carry. So the Glock weighs 23.63 ounces, the Echelon, and that's with a flush mag. The Echelon weighs 24 ounces, so 0.37 ounces difference. Not enough of a difference to make a choice. That's not going to drive you one way or the other. And of course, that's without the optic. If you add an optic to any of these, then the weight of the optic factors in. Dimensionally, the Glock is 7.28 front to back. The Springfield is 7.25 front to back. Not a significant difference. Probably the closest difference that there would be is the Glock's grip is a little shorter. You'll see it's a 3-finger grip, but kind of part of my finger is on the magazine. The Springfield is a full 3-finger grip, and very little of my finger is actually on the magazine. It's 5.125 inches tall versus the Glock being 5.04. But from a standpoint of hiding the grip in a concealed carry scenario, that's not going to be enough difference to make a difference. From a thickness perspective, the Echelon is relatively thin for a classic double stack at 1.2. The Glock's just a bit chunkier at 1.34. Of all of the specifications, the thing that might make a difference there is that spec. The thinner a gun is that you're trying to concealed carry, and intents can matter in that particular spec, the easier it is to comfortably hide it and not have it bulge out on the side of your belt or wherever it is that you're wanting to keep it. But as far as having a major specification advantage, neither one of them really has a big advantage. The Glock can be cheaper. So this non-optic ready version you see is $540. The optic ready version is $650. The Echelon goes from $679 for what you see here up to $739 if you get the 4.5. So you might look at it and say, well, you know, the Echelon's a lot more expensive than the Glock. But just remember, all the Echelons are optics ready. The optics ready Glock is in the 650 territory. So if you're wanting an optic and you're going to put an optic on whichever one you pick, then the Echelon only ends up being 20-something, 30-something more expensive, not a significant amount. If you're really just wanting to be the least expensive you can get of these two, and you're not interested in optic, then the Glock would actually have that advantage. Overall, the last part that probably would matter is the trigger. So with the Gen 5, Glock kind of tuned up the trigger a little bit. Minimal take up, kind of a soft, kind of a smooth break, but it is well defined. Reset is almost all the way out of the travel, but the travel is very short, so it's actually quite a short reset. And then again, kind of a pull-through break. And this has the Glock marksman barrel, which is kind of a hybrid between the polygonal rifling that Glocks have been known for and conventional rifling. Now, if we talk about the trigger of the Echelon, it's a flatty trigger versus a classic, you know, kind of a curved trigger. Minimal take up, crisp, very short, very light break. Reset is almost all the way out of the travel, but it is, to travel on this is even shorter than the Glock, so it's a very short reset. And then again, a nice short crisp break. Now, of course, when I say travels all the way out, it's all the way out from the point of take up on the wall. I mean, all the way out would be there. But look how overall short the trigger travel is. The Echelon has a very, very good trigger. The Glocks have a decent trigger. I like Glock triggers. I work well with them. But when it comes down to the trigger itself, Glock definitely wins the game on that. And as far as rifling, of course, I have my little tube for lighting up the barrel. And if I can get the camera to focus, you'll see it's conventional rifling on the Echelon, which is very standard. Almost all guns these days are conventional. And I had mentioned the Glock marksman barrel, so I'll show you that. The Glock marksman barrel, it's kind of weird looking when you just look down into it, but what you see are the kind of polygonal hills and valleys, but also sharp grooves, and that's that hybrid between the two. As far as is one massively better than the other, I haven't really seen that it's massively better in either case. Let me close these guys back up. I think what would make the decision is if you've already got a collection of Glocks, you got Glock magazines, you've got various assorted magazines that, you know, are kind of fun to have at the range, and you're looking for another gun for your lineup, the Glock 19 might be a good choice for that, especially if you've got, you know, the Glock 17, you got a 34 or 35, etc., etc. But if you're buying your first compact carry gun, I would definitely go towards the Echelon. A lot more advanced features. The chassis system means as other grip frames become available, you can swap things out. I'm sure colors will be available. There's no end to the possibilities with the Echelon. The Glock is what it is. You know, it's a Glock's a Glock, and that's that. Nothing from a price perspective or anything else makes a serious tilt one way or the other than I would choose the Echelon overall. It's more advanced and continues to advance, and Springfield keeps investing time and effort into making the Echelon series more and more interesting as time goes by. Beyond that, if you like our videos, please give us a thumbs up, share, subscribe, click that bell up there to be notified if you do. Check us out on Facebook, Instagram, Play, or Rumble. We're pretty much everywhere, and thank you.